28 Years Later is a horror movie directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland, the two finally collaborating again after both working on 28 Days Later. The movie follows 28 years since the Rage virus escaped a biological weapons laboratory, now still in a ruthlessly enforced quarantine. Some people have found ways to exist amidst the infected. One such group lives on a small island connected to the mainland by a single heavily defended causeway. When one member departs on a mission into the dark heat of the mainland, he discovers secrets, wonders, and horrors that have mutated not only the infected but other survivors as well. I've been a huge fan of the original 28 Days Later movie for a few years since I watched it. Despite it not being a full-on zombie movie, it's been in heavy conversation in the genre, and I do believe it's one of the best. I think everything about that film is just perfect. Along with that, I'm also one of the few defenders of the second movie, 28 Weeks Later. A lot of people don't particularly like this entry, and while I agree it doesn't reach the same heights as the first movie, I still found it to be an entertaining watch. So naturally, I've been highly anticipating this entry in the franchise, especially with the two original creators coming back. Danny Boyle especially is a filmmaker I really do like, with Trainspotting being one of my favorite movies. So how does this movie compare? Let's find out. I'll start by talking about the performances, leading with someone who at first I surprisingly didn't take would be the leading actor. That person is Alfie Williams, a child actor in his debut acting role, pretty much. I've expressed in the past on this channel that I don't particularly like child actors, especially modern child actors, as most of the time they never make for very good performances. However, I am pleased to say that I think this guy did a great job, especially for this being his first acting role. Whenever he's faced with some of the horrors the character goes through, in this he conveys terror really well to a believable extent, which makes you sympathize towards him. He starts off in the early stages of the movie presenting himself to walk around with this wonder in his eye, while also being cautious of the environment he's surrounded in, and later molding himself to be this independent and calculated survivor. It's fascinating watching his character grow in this first out of 3 movies. It'll be interesting to see how he develops throughout the trilogy. Whenever the movie calls for emotional moments, he pulls this off well, showcasing his emotions through his expressions in an impressive way. Whenever he shares the screen with some actors, the chemistry is good between them, especially between himself and Jodie Comer. Having this mother-son dynamic was sweet to watch, as he takes care of her more than she is capable of taking care of him. Speaking of Jodie Comer, I thought she did good here too. She's balancing quite a lot in this role, as we see her character switching between different emotions in quick succession throughout the runtime due to this illness her character suffers with in the movie. Before people flee to the comments, I will say that her character is not an infected. I realize in saying she has an illness that would be people's first thought, but this isn't the case. She brings a great deal of vulnerability to the role, which I respect to see. I feel like seeing how her and Williams' character interact, there will be some people in situations that will be able to relate to this, so that emotional core of the movie will most likely hit hard there. She has some pretty good and even some funny line deliveries here and there, which is another aspect that helped her performance be memorable. Aaron Taylor-Johnson is surprisingly pretty good here too. I only say surprising because some people seem to complain about the guy time and time again, but I thought with the material he was given here, he does a pretty good job in the role. There's a few layers to his characters, which was interesting to see, but also expected with this honing in on themes present in the franchise. When we first meet him, he plays into this family type man who will do whatever he can to protect his family, but as the runtime goes on, we see this persona start to slip and ironically see him evoke rage despite not being infected with the virus. He can be pretty threatening when he wants to be, which makes the viewer fearful of what he could possibly be capable of. When this aspect of his character is shown, Aaron Taylor-Johnson does this well and believable. He does a good job, especially of making his character hateable. Ralph Fiennes shows up in the latter half of this movie. He plays a doctor that has supposedly gone mad due to isolation on the mainland island that is featured in the film. However, despite the possibility of this insanity slipping, he presents a good portrayal of being kind and gentle. He's an insanely likable character in this. His character design is pretty cool too, as he's covered in this yellow-orange liquid, making him appear very vibrant. He really takes control of the film for a while once he appears, and while he's around, he speaks in a way that keeps you engaged with whatever he's saying to the characters, as he possesses some really poignant, beautiful monologues here and there. He was really enjoyable to see on screen. I can only briefly talk about Jack O'Connell, as he shows up in essentially the last scene of the film, but he is such a standout when he finally appears. Great year so far, starring in this, and also having a fantastic role in the movie Sinners. His character design is totally bizarre and in a way shocking for reasons I won't get into. Firstly, to avoid spoilers, and secondly, to avoid any possible future monetization that could appear on this channel. He may only appear for a quick segment in this, but he makes the most of it, along with other actors he shares the screen with. He is clearly having a lot of fun in the role and makes the most of his screen time he has. He stole the show from this point and supposedly will have a more dominant role in the second movie. He was great here. I have to commend the filmmakers of this thing for choosing how to market this movie. I don't know if this will hurt how people will receive it or not, but there's certainly insane audacity doing so. The trailers and admittedly the first act of this movie is essentially a father-son story trying to survive the apocalypse, a type of scenario that's been seen before in stuff like The Road by Cormac McCartney. Aaron Taylor Johnson's character is seen trying to train his son to hunt the infected, but also portrays doing this in a way that seems strangely toxic for how he speaks and acts around his son. Once the son sees his father for who he is, the movie flips this concept on its head and becomes this interesting take on a coming-of-age tale about a son trying to take care of his sick mother while obviously trying to survive through the infected. I think I prefer the second and third act of this movie a lot more, simply for how much more interesting the movie becomes. In the latter half of the movie, we are treated with what can only be described as a beautiful tribute to the macabre. Every aspect of this is handled so touchingly, from the dialogue to how things are shot. It's one of the best parts of the movie. There's an exciting scene during the end of the first act when Aaron Taylor Johnson and Alfie Williams' character are running from what is coined as the Alpha infected. It's super tense and thrilling to watch. I really appreciated just how much world building they're able to throw into this already in one movie. It's no wonder they're making it a trilogy, because there's certainly a lot to explore here, but once you get a feel for things pretty early on, the community is established well and all the roles of different ranking members are laid out, which is told visually, thankfully. I appreciate how much care went into making this world so detailed. It'll be interesting to see it explored in the sequel. I will admit, like a few franchise movies coming out recently, I couldn't help but feel like wanting more by the time the movie is over. It's so close to being its own story, but the ending does make it open-ended to lead it to a sequel. It's almost a complete story, but no, going in, you will leave wanting more, but maybe that's a good thing, as hype for its sequel will be expected. A big sell for this movie is the idea that this thing is shot on iPhones. I was definitely hesitant on this fact, as I hoped it wouldn't set a precedent for modern films, but when you see behind the scenes photos of these iPhones, there is a plethora of attachments on them, so it's not that big of a deal. This movie, I will say, is really beautifully shot. I think especially the colors stand out a bunch here. There's a great abundance of luscious greens and blues. The blue colors really pop in. This one scene where Aaron Taylor Johnson and Alfie Williams' character is crossing a bridge, running from the Alpha infected zombie. It's insane how they shot the night to look like how it does. The director of photography, Anthony Dod Mantle, said about the scene, "We built the set ourselves, filled it with water and made sure it was temperature controlled. The entire set was 450 feet long with a gate in the middle. We had cranes and tracks down the side, 2 dollies working at the same time. We had the bar cam, which is an array of iPhones on a techno crane." Clearly from this alone, there was a lot to care and dedication to creating atmosphere in this film. There's moments when we see the infected through an infrared lens. It makes all their eyes this harsh red, along with the rest of the screen being covered in red, almost like the screen is filled with blood. There's an interesting technique used here whenever the infected are killed in the early half of this movie. The way I can describe it is how they're killed is whenever you perform one of those lock-on kills in Fallout. Admittedly, at first I thought this was an odd choice, but I got used to it after a while and really appreciated how cool it was. Some things the franchise is known for is back here too, like changing the shutter speed to the camera to give the film a more fast-paced feeling, which was welcome to see again. There's truly no doubt that this is one of the most visually striking movies of the year by a long shot. I thought the editing in this movie was really well done too, helping a lot of the shots stand out, as well as when it comes to the scenes of the infected, these sequences are cut with fast-paced editing to give them a jarring feeling, but not too much to where it comes disorientating. There's a sequence near the beginning of the film known as the Boots sequence, featuring the poem which was infamously used in the first trailer for this movie. In this sequence, Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Alfie Williams' character are essentially marching along this bridge and practicing shooting their arrows, which is intercut with footage of soldiers shooting their bows and arrows too. I thought the clips paired with each other worked really well. I think John Harris, the editor of this movie, did a great job here. The music in this movie is a little more unorthodox than I had expected before going into this thing. The score was composed by a band by the name of Young Fathers, who are made up of Aloysius Massaquoi, Caius Bankole, and G. Hastings. There is a 100% chance I have butchered all of those names, so I apologize in advance. The score features a mix of different sounds and feelings. Some tracks have this joyous energy while maintaining a sense of unease, or even just completely joyous, pulling you into a false sense of security, like the song Lowly, which is one of the most feel-good songs you could ever imagine. And on the opposite side of that, there are these haunting yet oddly beautiful tracks sprinkled throughout the runtime. It's different, it's bold, and it pretty much always suits the scenes that they are used in. Obviously, with this being a horror movie, an aspect I have to talk about real quick is if the movie is scary or not. While I don't think this movie reaches the same terror as the first movie evokes, there are still some good moments here and there featuring the infected that make for some creepy atmosphere. Seeing some of them crawl on the ground is a really great touch, creating some good tension. As for the course of a modern horror film, there are the odd jump scares here and there, which are usually pretty predictable and always aren't very good, so those aspects won't scare people. However, there are some kills and some ideas story-wise throughout the plot that might disturb some general audiences here, and which makes up for the mediocre jump scares. The kills and the gore in this movie are done really well. There's a lot of attention to detail put into how the infected look, especially. Overall, this is a pretty great legacy sequel in a community full of legacy sequels that tend to solely rely on nostalgia bait over an actual great story. But thankfully, this movie does have a really good story at its core. As a movie itself, I don't think this entry reaches the same heights as 28 Days Later, but it definitely is an improvement over 28 Weeks Later, even if I still defend that movie. While I think it takes a little bit for this movie to get going, once it does get going, it doesn't let go, presenting a really entertaining time that can only be achieved in a horror movie. The filmmakers decided to make something bold and unique, and I can only really respect the hell out of them for that. I'm giving 28 Years Later 4 stars. It's an insanely well acted, with particular standouts from its lead, Alfie Williams, to Ralph Fiennes and many others. It's visually striking, holding some great cinematography. The tension is as high as it usually tends to be in these types of movies. Horror fans are going to get a really great kick out of this one, even if some people who weren't that big into horror might appreciate some aspects late throughout the movie. At the time of me recording this, it is still in theaters, and I feel like hopefully it will stick around at least for a little longer than the average movie is allowed to be in cinemas these days. I can't stress how important it is to check this one out on the biggest screen possible, with the best picture and the best sound to experience out of this thing. It's one of the surprise standouts of the year, and it's really great to see Danny Boyle back to his roots again, bringing us such a banger in a slew of mediocrity coming out this year. Check this one out as soon as you can.